What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Movies That Make You podcast, where movies are more than just entertainment. They're a catalyst for meaningful conversation. I'm Jonathan Sprang, and I go by Sprang, and most weeks we dive into movies to watch in preparation for a new release hitting theaters. But we don't stop there. We talk about the morals, the values, and the life lessons these movies have to offer. This week, we've got Scott Derrickson films. I've got a good friend of mine, JR Forasteros, from the Don't Split Up podcast and other things as well. But he's a huge fan of Scott Derrickson. We've got Black Phone 2 dropping in theaters Friday. So we're going to discuss his filmology and just kind of see what speaks to us through his films. What is he trying to say through his film? We hope you'll go check out our website. It's bio.site/movies that make you. There you'll find all of our links to all of our social media channels on YouTube, Instagram, and elsewhere. You can also find our podcast links to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can also check out our letterbox, which shows you all of our lists on the movies that make you laugh, the movies that make you cry, the movies that make you scream, and everything in between. Before we dive into this week's episode, though, let's take a look at the next 4 weeks on the Movies That Make You podcast. Next week, we've got the top 5 scary movies from the kids. We've watched some scary movies the last few years. We're watching a bunch in October. So we're going to have the boys walk down their top 5 scariest movies that they like. The week after that, we've got Rod Janlu on the show. He is the organizer and promoter of OKC HorrorCon, which we went to this past summer, which was amazing. He also has Tulsa HorrorCon coming up next month, November 22nd and 23rd. So we're going to have him on the show. He's going to talk about his 5 favorite scary movies and also promote Tulsa HorrorCon, so you can get more information and hopefully join us at the event. Chris and I will be there. Papa Goss is going to be there. So we've got Papa Goss and Rod on the show. It's going to be awesome. The week after that, we've got an epic show for you of epic proportions. We had our live stream just a few weeks ago. That was to celebrate our 100th episode. This episode is going to celebrate our 2-year anniversary, and we've got a bunch of guests. We've got Kristen on the show. We've got your favorite Papa Goss. We've got our returning favorite Papalicious Popheads, and we've got a new friend to the podcast, Horror Cat Dad. We're going to be talking about Predator. We are talking about all the Predator movies that have led up to this. Predator Badlands dropping that Friday. So we are super stoked to have Horror Cat Dad for the first time and to have all of our returning guests. It's going to be a big one. It's going to be 5 people. It's going to be crazy. The week after that, we're going to be discussing Now You See Me 1 and 2 in preparation for Now You See Me, Now You Don't, hitting theaters that Friday. The entire cast is back, plus more. So it looks to be a lot of fun, magic, mayhem. Join us. Hope those episodes excite you. So without further ado, let's get to the podcast. We are back with another episode of the Movies That Make You podcast. I'm Jonathan Sprang, and I'm joined today by my good friend, JR Forasteros. How's it going, bud?
Hey, man. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Very nice, very nice. Well, JR is a contributing editor at Sojourners, so we'll definitely have links to that. He is also a host, co-host, quad host of the Don't Split Up podcast. You mind sharing a little bit about those 2 items for the audience?
Yeah, everyone thinks that the Don't Split Up podcast is a marriage podcast because I do it with my wife, but it's actually a horror movie podcast because, as you know, the first rule of surviving a horror movie is you never, ever, under any circumstances, split up. So we're joined by our good friends Adriana and Mo, and we just basically fight about horror movies because it is exceedingly rare that all 4 of us agree on a film. I think the last time that happened was Godzilla -1. So,
Wow,
yeah, even Sinners, which is, you know, the best film of 2025. One of us just was wrong about it, you know, and so we had to fight about it.
I understand that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a great, you know, chance for us to just, you know, shoot the breeze and have some fun talking about horror movies. And then, yeah, Sojourners, it's a progressive Christian magazine, and I write a lot of faith and film stuff. I do a lot of different writing for them, but I would say my sweet spot, my bread and butter, is the faith and film writing. So I have an article that went up just a couple weeks ago on the Fantastic Four. I've also written a bunch of stuff about horror for them. Last Halloween, I did which horror movie monster are you according to your Enneagram number? And
Nice.
That got a lot of rage. People that were like, "How dare you call me out like this?" You know, like you typically do with Enneagram. But no, it was well received and generated a lot of amusement and hopefully a little bit of insight too. So
that's awesome. One quick story I want to share about you and your movie reviews and articles is one of the ones that I want to find, and I don't know if it's anywhere, but was your Noah top things you should know before you see Noah, Darren Aronofsky's Noah.
that was
Do you still have that somewhere?
5 things you should Noah before you go see Noah. That was
Wonderful.
an Amanda
That's great.
genius there, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm relatively certain that's still up somewhere. That was like easily the most read blog post I ever wrote. Yeah. So I'll see if I can dig that up and send it your way.
If you don't mind, like with we actually just went and saw Black Swan anniversary release this past weekend, and then I'm just kind of looking at his stealing, caught stealing coming out, and everybody's saying like it's just a fun like
Romp. Yeah.
crime.
Like a
Yeah,
crime
it's
movie.
like
Yeah.
completely different from anything he's ever done because he's always really deep and layered. But I'm sure there's layers in it too, just knowing him. But I was like, that's one of the movies I've held off watching because it's like I have to read this. I have to read this article so I can understand where where all these the imagery is coming.
He drew on a ton of rabbinic oral tradition, being Jewish himself, right? And
Hmm.
if you don't know a lot of that, it just sort of seems like Mad Libs in the Bible, which
Yeah.
sort of is what Midrash is anyway. But
Yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah.
if you know that he's not just pulling these things out of his butt, it I think it
Right.
does help with people who grew up with the Noah story being something that was like valuable and dear to them, So
Yeah, absolutely. It would be fun. I don't know if you're up for it, but I just was thinking about also Mother. Um, have you do
one of
you
my all-time
done
favorite films.
Mother, like a breakdown of Mother on a podcast or anything like that?
I wrote about it for either Sojourners or Think Christian. I'm almost certain. I wrote about it extensively at the time because, again, that movie is just a tour de force, unbelievable. And another one that if you don't like, I went and saw it with a good friend of mine who like has zero Bible background at all. And when we got done with it, she was like, "That was a weird movie," and I was like, "Oh, it's the Bible." And she was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Well, this
Yes.
is Cain and Abel," and she was like, "Who are Cain and Abel?" I was like, "Oh, right, okay." So like, yeah,
Yeah.
so I kind of like briefly touched on a couple things, and she was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, like I believe you, but none of that means anything to me." It's like, well, yeah, I can imagine that we connected to that
Yeah.
film in very different ways, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember watching that one and being somewhat caught off guard because I didn't know going in what it was, and
Not
then
at
after
all.
talking through reading about it and going, oh wow, there is a lot going on here, and I'd love to kind of revisit that. And I think those two in particular, Darren Aronofsky's diving into his religious roots and kind of really, it feels like he's expressing them using his own experience as well. So, but we're not here to talk about Darren Aronofsky, although he's a great director. You should go check him out. We are here to talk about Scott Derrickson. Scott Derrickson has a new film coming out, Black Phone 2, that drops in theaters this Friday. And so today, to prepare for that movie, we're going to actually walk through his entire filmography. JR is a huge Scott Derrickson fan from what I remember. And so I invited him to be on this call to help guide us through this guy's filmography. One of the things that I like to do when I have a guest on is introduce the audience to them and kind of where their love for movies came from. So do you have a movie or a couple of movies in your like backstory that like caused you to want to step into this kind of like critique or like love for movies, not just being a viewer of movies, but really engaging with the content?
I think this is going to sound insane, but probably the first movie that let me know that movies could say something and that not everyone was aware of that was Monty Python's Life of Brian. So, like any good red blooded 90s American teen male, I was obsessed with Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Watched it 100 times, could quote it backwards and forwards and all of that. And then someone said, and innocuously, "Oh, you've seen all of their movies, right?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, what? Like, what do you mean other movies? I thought this was," and I didn't know that there was Monty Python's Flying Circus and that they were a comedy. Like none of that. I knew none of that, right? Because this was before there was an internet, and
Right.
so I got Monty Python's Life of Brian because it was supposed to be like a Jesus-y movie, and I was a good youth group kid. And I had a bunch of my friends over to watch it because we were all psyched, right? Like, oh, the Holy Grail. This is another one. As a kid who was in church and took church very seriously and considered myself very devout, but also like not at all ignorant of the various like problems and foibles of church, I found the movie deeply hilarious. Which, again, much later, I saw an interview where John Cleese said, we started out with just a big stream of blasphemous jokes, and then we read all the books, and we decided that Jesus was not really someone who lent himself to mockery, so we decided to make fun of his followers instead. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense, and I get it, and I see it in the movie. But then when it got out in my church that I had led a bunch of the youth to watch this horrible blasphemous movie, there was this big scandal, and I was like, did any of you watch this movie? Like, did anyone pay attention to what it was saying? Like, this is a lot of the same stuff we talk about or complain about, or maybe we should be talking about and complaining about, right? Like, it struck me as something that was, one, deeply hilarious, but also profoundly true. And then when I saw the reaction to it, I was really, kind of struck by the fact that it, again, seemed like a lot of people either just didn't bother to watch it before getting angry, or that we had almost watched two entirely different films,
Yeah.
And so I don't know that like pushed me into being a critic by any stretch of the imagination, but that was certainly one. I would say another experience, well, two other experiences. One, I know that you and I will have in common, so I'll save it for last. Another one was in the summer of 2000. It was after my freshman year at college, and I was living in my college town. I didn't go back home to live with my parents. And as you do when you kind of go feral in those days, when the college town empties out and it's just the townies and the few college kids left, we would do all kinds of shenanigans. And at one point, I think I got like 15 of my friends or maybe it was like 10 of my friends to go see at the second run theater, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, the Coen Brothers film.
Yeah.
Had not seen it yet, right? But of course, it opens up with a quote from the Odyssey, letting you know that this is going to be a riff on Homer. And had I read the Odyssey as a freshman in college? No, of course not. But I knew the basic beats of the story from comics and, reading mythology and stuff. And I aspired to be a person who had read the Odyssey, which I still have not. So I watched this movie, and I'm transfixed, like from the first frame to the last frame, just completely unable to look away from the screen, jaw on the floor, like laughing, tearing up in a couple places, just really profoundly moved. The credits roll. I look down at all my friends as though like we are about to like bask in the incredible experience we've just had. And all of them were like, what did we just watch? That was the most stupid movie I've ever seen. And again, I was like, what? And I can't overemphasize how this was like before there was kind of an internet in 2000, but not really an internet, like not what this internet is, right? So I couldn't get on Twitter and be affirmed that no, actually most people that saw this movie thought it was brilliant, and I just happened to be with 9 friends who were outliers, right? Again, I had this jarring experience of having been profoundly moved by something, not just entertained, but profoundly moved by something that had completely not connected with all of these other people. So it made me question what's going on here. What did I see that they didn't? Or maybe what did they see that I didn't, right? It's always possible that I just was, The last one, and this is chronologically out of order, but I think thematically it works because this will bring you in, was of course the 1999 phenomenon, The Matrix, right? Where again, it was both the most brilliant action movie ever made and also so profound that it gave pastors and freshman philosophy kids fodder for like a decade, and it didn't have to be one or the other. And in fact, a lot of the action and the visuals in the film were part of the argument the film was making, right? They weren't just entertainment. They weren't sugar to get you to swallow the medicine, right? It was all part of this one sumptuous feast. And so being able to talk about and dissect and, and all of that, it was just fun. Right. And so that made me want to see what we could do that with some other films. Then I had films like Girl Interrupted or Gone Baby Gone, some of these other like smaller films that still end up having a lot to say, that I think those experiences primed me not only to discuss, but then also to be prepared to be disagreed with, like not everyone's going to see a movie and have it resonate. And that is actually almost even more interesting than what I think the film is saying, is what you think the film is saying and why those can be so different,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. The Matrix is definitely it's my number one. We did top five last Father's Day. I shared my top five movies with the boys, and yeah, it's still up there number one. I actually got to Jacob and I watched it for the 25th anniversary, and we did a podcast together on it, and he kind of shared the things. So connecting with him on that was really fun.
Are you
And
going
I
to see it
think
in the big dome theater?
we I just saw that a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, for as a
How
birthday
was that?
present. It was jaw dropping, really. I was a little
Like it
nervous
wasn't
going
just the
in.
shtick?
It wasn't. It wasn't. There was
Okay.
so much immersion and it wasn't distracting. I was a little bit worried about what are they going to do? Is it going to be distracting? And it wasn't. The
because
all the
because they created a bunch of new content, right? This is you have the
yes,
movie, but then there's like stuff around the movie. Is that
exactly. It's basically like putting you. Sometimes it's like putting you in the scene. Sometimes the scene is set around so you're sitting in a similar type space. And then there's sometimes when they've expanded, for instance, the when you go through the digital phone number at the very beginning, right? And the camera goes through, so it's completely immersing you. The lobby scene when the bullets are flying and everything, like
Mhm.
you're seeing it, and you're seeing everything in the whole space is being destroyed, and it's semi like in line with where the film is. Other scenes, they designed a room like the time that Morpheus meets Neo, or Neo meets Morpheus the first time, and they're in that room. They set up a room that's similar. There's a window, there's a door, and there's an old decrepit space. But then they designed some things around the screen that were interactive and doing things along with the movie. But it wasn't like it was part of the movie, if that makes
Yeah, yeah,
sense.
yeah. And they
So
didn't like
some
stretch. They didn't stretch the film
right,
out to like
no,
distort the
right,
actual.
right.
Okay.
They created all of this kind of yeah. It was powerful. Yeah.
Not to bring up the director we're not talking about today, but Aronofsky created a film for the Sphere in Las Vegas. I don't know if you've heard about this, where
Mm-mm.
they're doing all the concerts, right? So like U2 had a residency there, the Backstreet
Yeah.
Boys just did a thing, right? So I guess when they like opened it, I had a couple friends that got to like crash the grand opening where all the celebs came. And
Wow.
apparently Aronofsky like actually filmed a like whatever they're calling it, 4D, or like a film that is meant to be seen not on a flat surface but inside of a dome, right? Because
Yeah.
yeah, you can't with something like, what do they call the theater you went to, the Omni or something like that?
A Cosm. Yeah,
The
Cosm.
Cosm. Okay, yeah, something like that, or something like the Sphere, right? You can't just, well, I mean, you can, but you're wasting, I think, when you just sort of like stretch the movie, the 2D movie
Hmm.
out to a 3D space, right? So
Right,
I'm
exactly.
interested as these sort of more immersive technology. VR is the same way, right? Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
obviously you could put on a pair of VR goggles and just watch the movie inside of the VR, but like that's not actualizing the promise of VR. You,
Exactly.
at least for now, we don't have the technology to change the original film. So then, yeah, do you augment it, or do you just make new media that is, appropriate to
Hmm.
these? I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see, 10 years from now or 50 years from now, because 3D took forever before, like, now, well, yeah, now
Hmm.
you can just do a 3D movie if you want to, and whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And they called it shared reality. That was kind of the underneath subtitle of Cosm, a movie in shared
okay,
reality. So it's like because you're all sitting in the space together and you're sharing this thing that's like you have no peripheral vision that's not covered with
right,
some sort of
right,
content. One of the key, like the fun things about it was like in that same scene where Neo's talking to Morpheus and it's raining outside and it's thundering and lightning. And in the movie, the camera's on Neo's face and you see the lightning flash. Well, you're seeing the window and the window's got rain on it. And it's flashing in sync with that too. So it's like you're there in that way. And they did that. I mean, and like I said, it was tasteful. It wasn't distracting at all. It really amplified everything. And so I was a big fan of it. But yeah,
that means a lot coming from you, because I know you're pretty protective. So
yeah, yeah. I mean, and I think we've talked a little bit about the trilogy. Not everybody liked the following two films from that series, but it really resonated with me. I've been telling people I have to rewatch the fourth one again. I think you gave, what did you give it, like C or something, like 3, like a C minus or something, like
Yeah, but
maybe a D
again, I know we're
plus.
not here to talk about the Wachowskis, but I think it was intentionally done that way. I think that was Lana Wachowski's middle finger to like, okay, if you're gonna make me because they basically told her this movie is getting a sequel, period.
Yeah.
Would you like to have a say in it or not?
Yeah.
Right. So there's that scene in the fourth one where they're basically telling Neo the same thing about his video game. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
like you could just see Lana Wachowski like doing this to Warner Brothers like through the screen.
Exactly.
And so yeah, like the fight scenes were so boring and derivative and dumb. I was like, there is no way that Lana Wachowski didn't do that on purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the Wachowskis have to try to make bad action. Whatever else you say about them, their action is incredible. And so the fact that we
Yeah.
got these like completely forgettable, completely uninspired action scenes, it's like, yeah, this is all on purpose.
Yeah.
That said,
For
I
sure.
did not enjoy my experience of watching the movie, right? Like,
Yeah.
whether that was her intention or not, like, it's not good. And maybe that's the point. Okay, cool. But yeah, not.
Yeah. So it may just be one of those things where we just kind of keep that trilogy kind of in its nice little spot, and
They're
this is
working on, I
just
think, a reboot slash
are they?
requel right now.
Yeah.
Of course they are, right? Like, that's a
Yeah. Yeah.
bajillion-dollar franchise. So,
Right.
I don't know.
Exactly. Well, I think a lot of the films that you commented on have a lot of this kind of philosophical, theological kind of angle to them as well, that they've inspired you. It makes sense that you do what you do. And one of the directors that you love is Scott Derrickson. And I think he plays in that realm often, if not every single movie that he's done is playing with faith, religion in some way or manner. And he's in the horror genre. So for some kind of really strict, kind of closed religious people might say you can't do that because horror is bad and we believe in Jesus and Jesus is good. Don't fill your mind with that garbage. I don't think that's the case. You don't think that's the case. But Scott Derrickson is one of those directors that does a really good job of playing in those spaces. What is it about him that made you gravitate towards his work?
Well, again, I would say Derrickson is a director that I liked before I knew I liked him, right? Because I liked
Mm-hmm.
some of his movies before I realized that it was all the same guy making them, and before I was really
Yeah,
super painted. I mean, obviously, you can't not know who Steven Spielberg or George Lucas are,
sure.
right? But then after that, I think it was like, yeah, for me, then the next level was like the Coens,
Mm-hmm.
these people who have such a distinctive, idiosyncratic style that you can watch. If a Coen movie you have not seen is on in the background, you'll be like, oh, this has got to be the Coen brothers, right? Like
Yeah.
they just have these fingerprints all over stuff. I don't think Derrickson is as, I'll say, idiosyncratic as the Coens, right? Or like a Wes Anderson, who is like so Wes Anderson, he's Wes Anderson himself into Wes Andersonville.
So we
But
just, I sorry, I have to interrupt.
oh
Zeke and I watched the what is it, the Phoenician
yeah,
Scheme together
yeah,
because we saw the trailer and he was dying laughing at the trailer, and my wife Kristen and the other boys were like,
no
mm-mm.
thanks, yeah.
So we're like, that's our style of humor. So we watched it. So we still quote it uh, nearly daily. Well, for me, I feel very safe.
Yeah.
Here, have a hand grenade. Like, just like that one line has permeated our life on a
Yeah.
daily. So
But yeah, right. Like Derrickson is not as singular as those guys. Uh, I don't think that's a detriment, right? But I think what attracts me to his stuff is that he has such a distinctive point of view, particularly as someone who prefers to play in horror, right?
hmm
He, at the end of the day, like he is a believer, and he believes in he believes in the reality of good and evil. He also believes that evil doesn't always lose, that on this side of the resurrection we are not guaranteed anything, and I think you see that in his films. I know we're going to talk specifically about Doctor Strange, but I think one of the reasons it is one of the most memorable Marvel films of its era is because of the choices Derrickson made in the way the story is told. I think one of the reasons, even some of his more mediocre stuff is still interesting, is because of the particular approach he has to depicting evil in particular. And to your point, right, there are so few religious people that will do that. I think the only other notable Hollywood person is like a James Wan, who is also a very outspoken Christian, and whose stuff frankly leans significantly more evangelistic than Derrickson. You have the Hayes brothers writing the Conjuring films, right, and where they have these like very explicit like evangelizing lines in them, and you just don't have that sort of thing with Derrickson, because I think he is less convinced that that kind of stuff will make a difference, and certainly the older I've gotten and the longer I've been in pastoral work, the more I tend to agree with Derrickson. I don't think that just making sure your girls are baptized is enough to protect them from the evils of the world, as the first Conjuring movie insinuates.
Right.
And so I think that's where I tend to land more with like a Scott Derrickson type filmmaker. I do think it's interesting how his style has evolved. I do like the people he has surrounded himself with, most particularly his writing partner, Robert C. Cargill, I think is another really fun storyteller. I've really enjoyed it, particularly a lot of his short fiction. And yeah, I think he's got a really good sensibility as a director, and I like what he does. I also think he does a really good job of like supporting the industry, so he seems like an all around great guy. I've never gotten to hang out with him, but Mr. Derrickson, big fan, love having on the show,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll tag him, of course. It would be great to get some replies, that'd be awesome. And I think the series kind of jumping into the movies of his, I think it makes sense then that he would begin his career going all in on evil versus good with Inferno, Hellraiser Inferno, which I had not watched any of them until a few years ago. I think because caught a clip of it once when I was about 15, 20 years ago. I was like, oh, that's too weird for me. And
it's
so like
weird.
it is. So I stayed away from it. And then just a couple years ago, I decided to watch it again, as a part of our October plans, where we watch a scary movie, horror movie every day for the month of October. And I really enjoyed the first Hellraiser. Hellraiser 2 kind of went a different kind of direction. I would compare that to like Nightmare on Elm Street and Nightmare on Elm Street 2. Like it really jumped like to a completely different vibe. The third one kind of comes back and it's kind of more like the first in the way that his story's telling. But we get to Inferno 2000. Scott Derrickson picks it up and he tells a unique story and a unique take on Pinhead. What are your thoughts on Inferno?
I got to tell you, never seen it.
Nice.
I have a very low tolerance for the Hellraiser movies.
Gotcha.
I get them. I understand. I'm like, no, I got it. I understand what we're doing here. It's just not particularly interesting to me. I also think that, so you know how like once Walk Hard came out, it's hard to take any biopic seriously ever again.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the same way, if you've seen the Rick and Morty episode, a Morty Rick Griff or a Morty Ken Rick Feedy or whatever it is, the one where they parody the Hellraiser Cenobites,
Yeah.
it's very hard to just take any Hellraiser movie seriously. Like it, you know. And so I watched, I've seen the original one. I get it. It's not scary to me, but I get it. Props to the Pinhead, right? I watched the reboot, requel, whatever, with the female Pinhead, which was the end of everything as far as the internet was concerned. I've seen a couple of the other ones in between, but I didn't particularly care for the first one, and everyone that I've ever read or talked to agrees that they only go downhill from there. So I was like, well, and I mean, and again, being a Derrickson fan, looking at Inferno, knowing that it has like a 14% on Rotten Tomato or something like that, knowing that it was one of the directed DVD ones, knowing that even Derrickson himself admits it's not very good, but hey, it was his first movie. It was a fourth installment in a direct to DVD franchise that was
Mm-hmm.
always like the redheaded stepchild of the slasher movie series anyway. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
props to him for starting there, and you almost have nowhere to go but up. But I'm genuinely curious, since you've seen it.
Yeah.
I don't know. What'd you like? Is it should I watch it?
I, it checks all those boxes you said, where it's like it's not great, right? It's very low. It's, as a movie, it's not great. I will say, the thing I do find fascinating about the Hellraiser series is Pinhead. In a lot of other slashers, other horror films, the demon, the villain, is out to get you, and he's out to take your life or take something from you. And Pinhead's not. The Cenobites aren't there to take anything from you. They're here to give you everything you ever wanted in your life. You can have it all, and you don't have to worry about anybody else. And what that does is it puts the main character, the protagonist, I guess you'd say. Actually, they're usually not a great protagonist if they're giving into all of those. I think that's the fascinating thing, is that when they get everything that they want, they realize the cost. And that ends up being, and then by the end, Pinhead has got them in their place. But it wasn't because he went after them. It's because he said, sure, you can have it, everything you want. And I think
Just
that's
keep saying yes.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating about the series. And this one in particular, it's actually a detective story. So I think he's playing a little bit with, because it's a cop that's kind of doing some things dirty, and he's got all of these bad things that he's done. I will say it also somewhat. Do you want me to spoil it for you? Are you okay if I
Yeah,
spoil
it's
it for you? You're not
totally
going to watch
fine.
it. Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
how the
All right. So
listeners are going to feel about it, but
spoiler alert, guys. It's fine. But there's this sense where he also is playing with. So the detective story kind of reminded me of another one of his films we'll talk about later. And then also the end result of Pinhead's kind of curse on him is also interesting, in that kind of plays on Doctor Strange a little bit. At the end of the film, after he's kind of tried to get away from Pinhead and the whole world is crashing around him, he basically says, "Welcome to hell," and the whole thing, the whole day starts over, and he begins to go through every all the worst things that happened in that day. He started back over, and now he has to relive all of that. And a lot of it had to do with him, having to face all of his own demons, all the things that he was doing that was evil, to the people around him and the world around him, cheating on his wife, cheating at the job, doing all these things. Now he's having to relive that every day and face the death of all of the people he cared about and repeat. And that's his literal hell, is just that day on repeat. So, um, clever, clever. It wasn't great. The acting wasn't great. I looked up the main actor guy, and he's been in a bunch of other kind of like B movie horror stuff. I think he was in, the one big one he was in was, A River Runs Through It. I think that was the one, or
oh,
of Mice and Men. I
sweet.
can't remember which one of those, where it was like a book to
Okay.
movie kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, so
Well, I know it's interesting you say that, because Derrickson himself said that he thinks the script was better than the film he made.
okay,
And so it's interesting that you're
interesting.
saying, like, there was this story in here that I found really captivating and the film didn't quite deliver on it. It's like, well, apparently
Yeah.
you and Scott agree on that. So
Good. I'm in good company. I will say also it has Dexter's dad. So Dexter from the
yeah,
from the show.
okay.
So his dad plays like a partner, like kind of one of the main
Okay.
characters in the film. So it was fun to see him pop up in there.
So
Um,
what you're saying is, in theory, this could exist in the Dexter universe, because Dexter's dad
yes.
was also a
Yeah.
police officer. So that's what
Exactly.
I'm hearing you say. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
I
Yep.
haven't seen
And
that
that's
fan
where
theory anywhere, Jonathan, that
where do
Hellraiser
you
and
think?
Dexter.
Yeah. Where do you think he learned how to tell Dexter how
That's
to
it.
do
Yep.
this
Yep.
properly?
Yep.
Right. He
Yep.
had to see it firsthand.
You know, in the Dexter books, it is revealed that the Dark Passenger is actually a demon. I'm not making this
Oh,
up.
yeah,
So
I heard that. We went up to OKC Horror Con. Kristen and I, we've never been to any cons, and then this year we're going to four. So we went to
nice.
the Texas Frightmare, got hooked. Kristen loved it. We loved seeing like all the behind the scenes and the panels and all that stuff was great. And then we decided the next weekend was Fan Expo in Dallas. So we took the boys to that, and they had a good time. And then we got tickets at Father's Day. They were running a special for OKC HorrorCon and Tulsa HorrorCon. So we got those for super cheap. So we went up to OKC HorrorCon. Actually met a guy that drew the comics for Dexter. He worked on
Nice.
Dexter a bunch, and he drew the comics. He actually drew a Bart thing for one of our sons, for Connor, for Christmas. He doesn't know it's coming, but he likes The Simpsons, and so he actually drew a custom Bart situation for us. So that's
Spoilers,
pretty cool.
spoilers for Christmas.
Yes, yes. He doesn't watch the show. He just stars in
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good for you guys.
Yeah. But yeah, he was telling us that the books kind of went down that path, and they're like, oh, we're just going to do our own thing with the show. So I will have to say, after that the Inferno movie, I was like, how in the world did he get another job? Like, it's like, but
No one expects those movies to be good.
yeah,
I mean,
but you got,
honestly, like,
yeah.
the equivalent today is all of the random crap that comes up on your Netflix algorithm,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's
Yeah.
because they don't care if it's a good movie, they care if it makes money. And all it has to do to make money is land in the bargain bin at Walmart back in the day. Now it just has, if they can sell it to Netflix for $5 million or whatever, and Netflix can put up a thing that says, oh, you watched this movie with Bruce Willis in it? What about these 7? And you're like, I didn't even know Bruce Willis made 7 other movies in the year, 2022.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it is, there is a whole part of the film industry that is dedicated to making profitable content, not good movies. And certainly those Hellraiser movies, because they had such a rabid fan base that they don't care how good it is. They're going to buy it, because they can't go see it, right? Straight to DVD. So they're going to buy it when it comes out, and they'll make their money back. And that's all they cared about.
Yep. Well, he does get another movie 5 years later, comes out with, I would say, one of the best possession movies ever, in my opinion. We actually watched The Exorcism of Emily Rose with the boys. I think it was 2 years ago. No, it was last October. We started bringing them into our October fun. And I made a list on Letterboxd of all the PG-13 horror films and had them, choose which ones they wanted to watch. And this is my first experience of Scott Derrickson. And I remember walking away from it the first time just in awe of the story, in awe of the decisions that Emily made, in awe of the demons, whether it's plural or singular, are inside her, and what they exclaimed in that final barn scene is just like, I was just, what is this movie? This is amazing. And so I definitely wanted to share it with the boys. Did you have a similar experience to this film?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the fact that you open an exorcism film revealing that the person who has been you can't even spoil it, right? Emily Rose is dead at the beginning of the movie, right? Just what? Right? Like, this is not fit with The Exorcist or The Exorcist 2 or The Exorcist 3 or any of the other Exorcist movies we've seen, right?
Right.
You're not supposed to lose. And so the fact that we have her dead, unquestionably, unequivocally dead, this is not, and at first you're kind of like, yeah, is this some kind of weird dream sequence? Or nope, no, she's dead. The priest who oversaw her exorcism is incarcerated and charged with criminal negligence. And then the entire film is actually a courtroom drama with horror movie flashbacks, right? Just such a fascinating conceit. And then you add into that the fact that the prosecuting attorney is a Methodist Sunday school teacher, and the high dollar lawyer the Catholic Church hires is an agnostic, like leaning atheistic, right? And so it sets up it's loosely based, very very loosely, on a true story from Germany, a true account of an exorcism in Germany. But it's very, very modernized and brought into the 20th century. And like, the fact that Derrickson uses this as a way to interrogate the relationship between faith and the sciences, and how can these two things coexist, and his ultimate answer is like, they really can't in a legal sense, right? Because either Emily died from something you can't prove in a court of law, or she died from this person making a very wrong and ultimately fatal decision that is criminal, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that the way he resolved that was clever and satisfying narratively. But yeah, it pointed to the reality that when we're talking about a supernatural world, or a, you know, in the most literal sense, what something that is above or beyond or next to the natural world, which is what we can examine with our senses and prove in a court of law, these things are not going to coexist well together. And yeah, Jennifer, another Dexter tie-in, right? We have Jennifer
Yeah.
Carpenter as
Yeah.
as the main. I guess I didn't put that together. That all roads lead back to Dexter. So she gives just an absolutely unbelievable performance. Both I think, you know, the emotive acting that she does, but then also like her physical performance is really unparalleled. And it is super scary, you know.
Yeah, it is. It is very scary. The boys did well through it. They didn't have nightmares or anything, but I remember watching it just going, this is the scariest movie visually that they've seen. And it did kind of, it also brought back, we were rewatching the Conjuring series for the new Last Rites coming out, and the third Conjuring movie does a similar thing, courtroom drama, trying to say this guy was possessed at the time of the murder, so he's not guilty of it, right? So it's a similar take, but Scott Derrickson did it first and did it better.
Way better.
But it way better. But yeah, I mean, it's such a really cool, unique thing. You know, this is one of those movies that I would tell anybody that has a thing like, we shouldn't watch these because of, you know, it's bad, it's evil. I was like, yes, this is showing you the evil, and it's also showing you the sacrifice that a person's making for the sake of the good of everyone else, or at least showing that, hey, there is bad and evil in the world. Maybe we should, you know, not shy away from it
How do we
and
respond to
recognize
that?
it.
Yeah, how do we
Exactly.
engage with
Exactly. Yeah. So
it? Scott wrote this, co-wrote it with another one of his, it looks like a longtime producing partner named Paul Harris Boardman. But again, I think that's a part of the reason you can sort of feel Derrickson's sensibilities here.
mhm.
You know, the original case, I think, is much more of an open question to whether the woman was part of it's because I think it actually happened in like the late 1800s or something like that. So the medical community was significantly less advanced.
Yeah.
But it's much more of an open question. And from what I understand, there's actually a German version of, or a German film that retells the story that is way more
Okay.
ambiguous. Whereas again, I think this film wants us to believe that she is demonically possessed, and that actually the epilepsy medications are what are inhibiting the exorcism, right?
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
these are things
Yep.
that doesn't feel like the film is presenting these as possibilities as much as saying like this is what happened, right? And from my
Yeah.
understanding, the German film is significantly more
Mm,
ambivalent,
yeah.
which again is, I think, points to Derrickson's perspective. And you know, whether you enjoy that or not depends probably a lot on our own proclivities, right?
Yeah. And I think I do remember hearing or reading up on that when we were going to watch it last year, just like, because Kristen loves the fact that, you know, some of this stuff is, she loves things that are based on true stories, but when you get to horror, she's like, I don't want it to be a true story, but it's like, oh no, this is truly happened. And like, so we kind of went down a little rabbit hole there, but
Yeah.
yeah. So Scott Derrickson got to kind of do his original idea, and then he comes back and I don't know if it's a studio decision, where it's kind of like that Nolan thing. Hey, one for you, one for us, one for you, one for us. But he does The Day the Earth Stood Still, a remake of the classic film in 2008. Keanu plays a stoic alien, which fits perfectly for his thing, his shtick. He's got also stars Jaden Smith, a young Jaden Smith in there.
I forgot
And
Jaden Smith was in this movie.
yeah,
Wow. To
yes.
be fair, I
And
forgot a lot about this movie, except for Keanu. But yeah,
yeah, for sure. So I would say for me, I feel like there were some things that he did with the visuals that were really good, really solid. Some of the robot influences, it definitely had a bigger budget than he did for Inferno or you know, Emily Rose. It feels like he did some really good decisions there. Good visuals. I like the Noah's Ark reference. You know, that there's this sense where we're trying to we're going to bring some of the good people out, but everybody else is going to be destroyed. We're going to restart the earth. And then my one last note is I love that. I don't know. I'm sure he did this as a joke, but the group that was the group that was the fighting people in it. was the Whiskey Task Force.
WTF?
I was like, that's hilarious. 'Cause Whiskey Task Force on the job. I know they probably didn't say that, but so what's your take on The Day the Earth Stood Still?
I remember this being a big flop.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was not well received. I remember being bored out of my skull. You know, it being a great example of like just because you can doesn't mean you should, in terms of remaking old 50s stuff. And again, part of that is because of how little we understood about science and alien life and the universe in the 50s. But I also get the impulse because there was like a kind of a climate change warning in this film, right? Like you've
Mm-hmm.
been destroying the earth. And in the 50s, of course, it was nuclear war. That was what we were scared of. So I get the thematic resonances and the desire to like bring this story back. But man, it was just not interesting. It was
Mm-hmm.
slow. This is my memory of it. Now again, I haven't seen
Mm-hmm.
it since
Yeah.
2008, but these are the echoes it has left in my spirit.
Yeah.
I honestly forgot the movie existed until we were prepping for this, and I was like, oh. And again, I've read a bajillion Scott Derrickson interviews and listened to him on stuff. Like I remember knowing that he directed it. I just like
Mm-hmm.
it's like they Men in Black me, like to
Yeah.
just right out of my brain, right? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, you revisited this one though too, didn't
Yeah,
you?
yeah, absolutely. And I wasn't as bored this time. I think I was prepared
Okay.
to be bored, right? I was prepared because I
Right. Yeah,
remembered.
yeah, yeah. And you're doing it for
And
homework, so you're probably like paying attention to a
yeah,
lot
paying
more, like
attention to
trying, yeah.
stuff. It did bring to mind like War of the Worlds came out 3 years earlier, right? Spielberg,
The
Tommy
okay,
Cruise.
yep.
So it was like it was kind of that same like, hey, we can do our own, let's do another one. It also reminds me of The Thing. It's an old movie that gets remade, but then it's even better and like everybody loves it. So maybe there's a chance this could do the same thing. I feel like it did a lot of things that movies do when this is the subject matter that like, we're not all bad, so don't destroy us all. Like
Hashtag
that's
not
the
all humans.
right, exactly. And so I think that's where it kind of gets to. It's like he's there's no, it's just business. There's no emotion. He doesn't care either way. He's not here to hurt anybody. He's just here to destroy the world because we need to restart because you've done poorly with this. And then over the course of the film, she is able to show him in different areas where humans are interacting and seeing, with one of his alien buddies that they sit down at the diner and he's basically saying, no, I'm going to stay. Like, I'm going to destroy it all. It's like, yeah, but I love these people and this is my life now. It's like, you start to see it's kind of the wheels turning of like what it is to be human, and so there's some good thematic elements, I think. Still boring, but there's thematic elements and I'd say some solid visuals for 2008.
I think, you bring up that there's this like very clear Noah's Ark reference in here. And I think it's a great example of Derrickson being a little bit more willing to engage critically with the Judeo-Christian, uh, what is the word I want? Like the legacy of Scripture, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
there would be a kind of believer who would say, "Oh no, like if we're making a Noah's Ark reference, then we're saying like that was a good thing, right? Because God did it."
Mm-hmm.
And here you have someone saying like, "No, that's not a good idea, right? Like destroying
Yeah.
everyone and saving just a few and starting over is bad."
Mm-hmm.
Which again, there's some really fun rabbinic and Christian theological conversation around that, right?
Yeah.
And how the ark gets depicted. But I think it's again interesting that Derrickson wants to make sure a conversation like that is highlighted in his films, and
Yeah.
it's something that had someone else remade this, I don't know that would have been in there.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. The one other thing I thought was just poetic, is the aliens show up, and of course um, we've got an army surrounding the ship, and everybody's got their guns pointed, tanks pulled, everybody's ready to go to war. Alien comes out unassuming, very fragile, no threat. They just shoot him, and then all of a sudden you shoot him, and then okay, that's how we're gonna play this, and out comes a huge robot and like ready to just destroy everybody. Like, what did you think was going to happen? Like, we are flying from another planet to here. I'm pretty sure we have better technology than you do.
Right.
Why would you ever think that would be a good idea?
Because humans are pretty dumb, as it turns out.
As it turns out. We get down to Sinister, 2012. We get kind of another Derrickson from the mind of Derrickson, right? He gets another chance to do a film that's kind of his idea, it seems. Super creepy vibe. Ethan Hawke plays
Say
an
first
author.
partnership with Ethan Hawke. Yep.
Yep. Plays a partner that plays an author that's going to write this. He wrote one good book, and now he's trying to write better books. He's trying to get back to that, and so he's moved into this house where a horrible event happened, hoping that it's going to help him be inspired to write the best novel ever again. Great scares, I'd say. This is in one of those. I don't know if you saw that list that was going around last year, but it was like top 10 scariest films by science, because it's heart rate based.
It was the
and
number one, wasn't it?
Sinister was, yes. No, Skinamarink, I think, is number one on that list for some reason. Have you seen that?
No, that's
Yeah.
why.
Yeah, we watched it. I still don't understand how anybody says that's a scary. I get it. I get yeah. Anyway, but but this one definitely scary. There ends up being, I think one of the best scenes for me is, like, not to steal anything from you if you have other things you want to share, but the picture of the demon, like when it's a picture and it turns and looks at him and then looks back, it's like the subtle things, not the big jump scares. It's like the subtle movement where there shouldn't be. And I think this one also opens with the family hanging from the tree at the beginning, right? And slow mo, and just like, what is this movie? I mean, it just grabs you right from the beginning with that just horrible scene, and then tries to take you through and show you all this stuff. It was just really great. It checked all the right boxes for me, as far as horror is. So, what are your thoughts on Sinister?
First film that Derrickson wrote with Cargill.
Okay.
And again, I think every single time I watch a scary movie with people, I'm pretty forgiving in scary movies. I know people are. I guess it's maybe because I have such a low opinion of humanity, right? Everyone's like, "Why would they do that? They're so stupid." I'm like, "Have you met literally anyone? Like, we are stupid. That's why."
Yeah.
But we're always, oh, I wouldn't run upstairs. I'd run out the door, or I would, whatever. Well, one of the things I would say is like, oh, if you're living in a haunted house, you get out of the haunted house, right? Do whatever you got to do. Sell the house, move away. Doesn't matter. Take a lot. Well, they do that here, right? Like you're thinking like, oh, this is going to be another one of those dumb movies where like everyone knows they should get out, but they don't. And they even have it primed for why he won't, right? No, baby, we gotta, I gotta write this book, or we sunk all our money in, or whatever. No, they do. They get out. And then that actually turns out, for no good reason other than it's scary, to be the thing you're not supposed to do, right? That's what actually triggers like the next level of the haunt. But Bagul is a great villain, super scary character design. I think Ethan Hawke is terrific always, but in this, particularly as the central protagonist. And then you've got the secret sauce of any horror movie, which is the creepiest kids,
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, those videos that they keep finding and they keep showing were so scary and so disquieting. And again, the idea that the smallest and most vulnerable person in the house becomes the source of danger, right? Like that's very scary. And the fact that even when you do the thing that everyone agrees is the right thing to do, it ends up being the wrong thing to do, So
Mm-hmm.
there's this sense of like, you're damned no matter what you do, right? And I think that's a very that's just a very scary idea. And you look through Derrickson's filmography, and there's some big gaps in there in the years. You got to believe too that this writer who produced a hit, who's trying to do something else, he had Hellraiser, Inferno, and Day the Earth Stood Still on his resume, and then he had Exorcism and Emily Rose, right? Like,
Yeah.
probably a little bit autobiographical too. And
Yeah.
so I think all of that combines to make a film that, interestingly, I think has become more and more appreciated the longer it's been around. Like, I don't remember this like being a box office banger or
Right.
even really being on many lists in the first even 10 years it was around. But now, like, to your point, you're finding it a lot of different places, and you find a lot of horror people who, don't sleep on Sinister if you haven't seen it. It's so
Hmm.
good, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
It's kind of interesting too. Like one that comes to mind in that same realm would probably be the Babadook. I think it's one that I don't know if you found that super scary, but it's on some of those lists. But it wasn't one of those that kind of grabbed people's attention. People in blogs were talking about it maybe on social media, but it wasn't like a big media success or like a huge success. But it definitely is on those top 10 scary lists kind of thing that you don't want to miss. You want to see it if you like scary movies.
yeah, I think Babadook was great. It is one of those movies where the metaphor is front and center. The Babadook is a metaphor for, the anxiety and depression that comes with being a single parent, and um, so I think it's super good, and for as low budget as it is, creating such an iconic monster as the Babadook, who has now become a symbol of queer pride, even, right,
Oh wow. Yeah.
is really quite something. So
Yeah. That's awesome. I gotta give a shout out then to also one where the metaphor is really clear, and that is It Follows. We saw that at Alamo Draft House together, and to this day, it's in my top five indie horror films. Like we did our list last October, and I just that
it's got a
movie
sequel coming out. It follows
th-
too.
that's awesome with a TOO. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know
You
if they're gonna do
think,
the Dumb
right?
and Dumber thing.
There's another one. What? Yeah.
Yeah,
It also follows.
yeah. Um, So, kind of continuing on with Scott Derrickson's filmography, we get to 2014, and that is Deliver Us from Evil. Eric Bana is in this, plays a cop who has this extra sense. His gut or I forget what his partner calls it, but he's just got this sense that he knows when something's going to go good or he knows when something's really bad and he should dig in. And that acts up in this one, especially. Ends up pairing up with a not your classical priest, very kind of casual, cool priest, and they end up
Buddy
working together.
Christ priest.
Yes, yes, and they end up trying to solve this case. Ends up being that there's a possession. It's got more action movie vibes than it is kind of that classical possession movie. It's not run and
Because
gun, but definitely
isn't the possession victim a veteran?
I don't recall that one. I don't remember that one. It might be.
Let me do some advanced research on Wikipedia.
Okay.
I think that's what I remember of this film. I mean, I have other thoughts too, but I remember there being a strong sense. There was a strong connection to the Second Iraq War, which was going on
Yes.
at the time.
Yes. Oh yeah, yeah. You're
And
right. You're right. They had contracted this thing in this cave, and it went home with them. So they got possessed. Yes, you're absolutely right. They got possessed by it, and then brought it home, and then
so
it's
that's like,
causing them to do.
yeah. So you've got these soldiers. So there's that more of that action movie kind of stuff. But
Hmm.
then there's also, at the end of the day, it's like it's a demon or a spirit or whatever that's
Yeah.
come back with them. Which, again, a very short walk from that to the kind of PTSD that veterans deal with, right? And this idea that they come back as different people,
Exactly.
because of the things that they've encountered and contracted over there, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. I did have it in my notes. It is the radar. He talks about his radar. That's
But
the
yeah,
word that his
okay.
partner uses. But it's kind of like a spiritual gift that the priest says, "Hey,
Mhm.
this is your spiritual gift where you're able to find these and solve these things, and God wants you to do it." And I will say that the intensity of the final exorcism scene is just as high energy or more than the Emily Rose exorcism. It's a huge action packed, just loud, lots of stuff going on as they're trying to talk this demon out, and all that stuff. But I will say, it felt more like a cop procedural, than it did like I said, a possession movie or even a horror movie. It just had this kind of horror bent. I liked Eric Bana's accent. I thought he did a great job with that. And yeah, I think I gave it like 3.5 stars or something like that on Letterboxd. Not the best movie, but it's solid. Like it's worth
It
the watch.
is it is a it doesn't do a lot of innovating. There's not much in this film that you will not have seen before, but I think the pieces are all assembled in a satisfying way, you know? And again, there's something to be said about that. Particularly, I think when you're using horror like this to do something like shine a light on the kinds of traumas that are unique to veterans, you know. Frankly, it's fairly unusual to have a male possession victim, right?
Yeah.
The going back to The Exorcist, it's almost always a teen or preteen girl who needs a literal father figure to step into her life and bring order and balance. And so having this be Iraqi war veterans who are coming back, who have brought this evil back with them, like it's again, it gets a little bit messy when you really start to dig into it, but it is provocative, it is interesting, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just like you said, I think it's solid, right? It's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And that leads us to the movie you mentioned earlier, Doctor Strange, 2016.
Little
Uh,
indie project he picked up, right?
right? Well, and you think about it. You think about this. How did he go from Inferno, Emily Rose, Day the Earth Stood Still, Sinister, Delivers from Evil, and then all of a sudden gets a budget of becoodles of millions of dollars and says, "You're going to direct this next Marvel movie," and it was touted at the time as being like the first horror movie, because it had some horrifying moments, and also because he's a horror director. They're like, "Hey, maybe this will kind of get everybody's juices going. Oh, I got to go see how Marvel's going to do horror." While it didn't have any like possession ideas or even like vigilante or like slasher vibes, it definitely had a lot more of that scariness to it, to the villain character, played by Mads Mikkelsen. What a great, visually just great. And of course, he's a really solid actor. I love the mirror world. The visuals of this movie was just on point. And I think the finale, like the way that Strange decides to defeat this villain, is to put him in a time loop that you're not going to be able to move past this time loop, and I'm going to keep dying over and over and over and over again. How do you like that? Like,
Because I
just
don't have to win for you to lose, right?
exactly, like,
Yeah.
just super super powerful.
And I mean, yeah, I alluded to this earlier, but by this point in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we have seen the giant sky thing blow up the city however many times we've had movies, right? Like it's always how the third act goes. And so for this third act to be he arrives, the city's already been devastated by the giant sky thing, and then what we actually see is the city being restored, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, having this thing where it's like, I don't beat you, I just outsmart you, right?
Yeah.
Like is again just we still don't get Marvel movies like that. They still just at the end in the third act just outpunch each other, you know?
Right.
Um and so again, I think that's Derrickson's unique sensibilities as a believer and as a storyteller that come into this, right? Where it's like you can't outpunch evil, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
just and I mean, gosh, I know Mephisto is officially Marvel Satan, but Dormammu is like, you know, right up there.
Yeah.
And we didn't get
Yeah.
Mephisto yet. Spoilers for Ironheart. So yeah, like to see him literally take on an actual demon, which he's done in several other films, and also acknowledge, like he has in his other films, you can't really beat a demon, you know? Um, and then have this clever way to defeat him, right? A superhero way. It was
Yeah, and that kind of harkens to me. It reminds me a little bit of the Matrix Revolutions, right? And it's. I thought I was supposed to punch him, like, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people miss. It's boring to have the superhero give up, right? But he's not giving up. He's sacrificed. There's a difference,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he's like he felt like everybody in his whole life. Neo is telling him, "You just got to fight them. You just got to fight them. Just defeat them. Defeat them. Defeat them." And then he realizes, wait, maybe it's not fighting that defeats him. Maybe it's something else, similar to like a third way, that you would, instead of you can lay down for the enemy, you can fight the enemy, and he chooses a third way that is just so clever, beautifully. Those scenes I think are the most terrific scenes. All the different ways that we can kill Doctor Strange was on display there, so that was amazing. Have you
And
enjoyed?
pretty horrific, right? Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
they don't go
absolutely.
on very long, but when you really think about what we're seeing depicted, it's like, oh god, that's horrible.
Yeah, for sure. Um, have you enjoyed like did you enjoy Thunderbolts? I know you said there's nothing like they don't do this. The Thunderbolts kind of tried to do something similar where it was like
Very much,
this,
yeah.
we're
We end
not
with
going to
a
fight
hug
our way
instead of
in.
yep.
Yeah,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah,
and
really profound, right?
yeah. And I know why. I mean, the boys hated it, right? Like we're sitting there, I'm bawling my eyes out, like
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
emotionally, like this is so beautiful. And the boys
yeah.
are like, that was just kind of boring.
What,
I'm
they're
like,
just gonna
oh
hug
man,
each other? What? Yeah.
yeah. So good stuff there. So then we get to the next film is another, I think, an original idea, or at least he brings it to the table. The Black Phone, 2021, reunites
I
with Ethan
believe it's
Hawke.
based on a Joe Hill short story, which Joe Hill is
Okay,
Stephen King's son.
okay, nice. And you mentioned, autobiographical about earlier, and I think that brought to me on Stephen King because he always likes to have an author in his in his books, like going around to different places and trying to write, and like
Yes.
all this stuff
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
So,
Weird.
um,
Where is this inspiration from, Stephen? Huh. Yeah.
so the Black Phone, Ethan Hawke comes back. Also, has got the kid from How to Train Your Dragon as the main character we're following. There's these kids that are being kidnapped and they don't know where they are. And then his sister has also this hidden ability where she can sense things in the spiritual realm, or see things that she's not supposed to see, or see things that other people are seeing in her dreams. I think like her mom also had this gift and it ended up destroying her. I can't remember. She took her own life, right? The mom did.
I think that's correct. Yeah.
And so the dad is abusive because he's dealing with all that pain and he's taking it out on the kids. I mean, that one scene where he's like beating her with the belt, and I mean, that was one of the most heartbreaking, beautifully acted, gut wrenching scenes, where the brother is standing there about to go after his dad, and it stops just in time for it. Like, it's just all the tension that Scott crafts in that scene, and the beautiful acting by those kids really sold that. And I was really broken up by that scene in particular. Ends up that the brother gets taken, and he's held, and now he's getting phone calls on a black phone in the basement of all the other kids that have been killed. And he figures out how to get out with their help, ends up being able to escape because his sister, and because of these dead children that are giving him advice, or giving him tips on
And
how to
and
escape.
kills
Yes.
the devil, whatever,
Yes.
I don't know that we
Yeah.
ever actually learn his name.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true. That's true. I will say I also liked the mask that he wore. I thought that was really creepy, but also the fact that the bottom half was interchangeable, and when you first meet him, he doesn't have a mouth. When you next meet him, he's got a smile, and then when he comes in because he's sad, he's got a frown. I mean, it's just like a really clever way of kind of a new spin on kind of that classic slasher in a mask type vibe.
yep.
Ethan Hawke does
Makes you
great, of
wonder,
course.
in the 70s, where does he source such a mask, right? Is it like in Dark Knight where he has different Chinese factories make different parts so no one knows the whole
Right.
piece, right? Like what where are you getting all these mouths? Is he
Yeah.
just turning the frown upside down literally? Like what's happening here?
That's great. Yeah, so I really like this film. We watched it recently, to catch up for this, but the ghosts are here to help. And yeah, what are your thoughts on the Black Phone?
Overall it was good, interesting that it's a period piece, right? That horror movies are always having to find ways to take cell phones out of the picture, right?
Yeah,
Because
they have
those
to.
kind of yeah, those kind of ruin some of the inherent scariness,
Yeah.
whether it's because they have flashlights on them or because people are accessible or whatever, right?
Hmm.
And so doing a period piece like that, then you get this sort of like payphone looking thing in the basement. And I remember, I saw it a couple times in theater, and I remember not loving the sort of weird machismo going on in it. Like there's a something about it that just kind of like was it clanged a little bit for me. But I did think it was provocative that, if I remember correctly, nothing in the basement starts happening supernaturally until after the little girl prays.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
so
I
again, I
think you're
thought that
right.
was like a very interesting thing that Derrickson is bringing in, right? Where it's like, yeah, if the Lord does in fact work in mysterious ways, we have this interesting thing that, like, yeah, dead kids, ghosts,
Yeah.
sure, whatever, that's fine.
Yeah.
Again,
And
I
I
think
think
that can create some other theological problems of like, well, why didn't God show up before the kids got deaded, right? But
right, exactly. I also think this is the first time I've seen well, I guess not. The Exorcist and did have some cussing at God, but the little girl does tell God to F off or something like that. Like it's like
if he doesn't
really
help,
blatant.
right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
which I think is that also kind of wrote down like the casual nature of the kids and how they're bullying each
Mm-hmm.
other and being mean, and
Mm-hmm.
also their language and all that stuff. It's like we've got 4 boys at home. It's like this must be similar to what they deal with at school with the cussing and the violent nature of some of those interactions. And so it just was very fitting because the daughter was very strong-willed and very but also willing to willing to ask for help, right? But then also being very strong in that they're like, hey, you better come through. Like I'm putting myself in the line. It's time for you to come through for me. So there's a little bit of that, and I think it was also just a little tongue in cheek, for us to a little giggle.
It certainly was a laugh beat, but again, I think it reflects actually how most of the people in the scriptures actually ask for help, right? There very few of them are ever like meek and mild and just like, well, whatever you think, Lord, that's fine. I mean, most of them
Yeah.
tend to. I read one commentator one time who compared it to haggling in a uh, uh, Arabian bazaar, where it's like you're shouting at each other and going back and forth and refusing to accept the thing you don't want. And yeah, like
Yeah.
it looks a lot more like that, like than what the kind of prayers you'll find in most white churches, at least, right? So
Yeah.
it's
It's
fun.
true. Yeah.
It definitely got a big laugh in the theater every time
Yeah.
it happened.
Yeah.
So
But I think you're absolutely right. I say that I think there's a level of realism to that. There's an authenticity in that girl's prayer that we could probably learn something from. It's very good. Um, and speaking of the Black Phone, there is a tie-in from the Black Phone to another short film that was a part of a series. Uh, what are they called? I'm brain farting here.
anthology series.
Anthology series that you introduced me to. Another one that you introduced me to, the VHS series. Before we jump into Dream Kill, can you share with people what VHS series is and why it's so amazing?
Yeah, so anthologies are a tried and true horror uh, genre where basically you'll get a bunch of filmmakers to make short films and then you'll tie them all together and release them in one lump. So there's some cost reasons to do that. There's some obviously some promotional reasons to that. If you can get one bigger name director and a bunch of small up and coming, that can often get people seen who otherwise wouldn't be seen. It also costs way less to make a short film than it does to make a feature, and so they can do these on much lower budgets. And the VHS series, there's like 8 of them now, I think 7 or 8 or something like that.
They released 3 last year,
Yeah,
or some like very recently. Like,
it was
yeah,
to our point, right? This is why they're popular, because
yeah,
they're easier to make. And it doesn't matter if you get a stinker, because all you
Mhm.
need is like 1 or 2 really solid pieces to make it a must see kind of a thing. And so, yeah, they started releasing these quite a while ago. And the guys who did Blair Witch have done them. Scott Derrickson obviously has all, like, one of the most popular Mexican horror directors, who's a woman, has an installment on one. Like, I think the guy Kevin Williamson from the Scream franchise has done one, right? I mean, just
Nice. Yeah,
and then again, some people you've never heard of, but they've done them
yeah.
as well, and some of those are really. Oh, Gareth Evans has one of my all time favorites. Anyway, they all are. The other thing about most anthology series is they have what they call like a wrapper film, which is a
hmm
film that is the main story that you're watching, and then the characters in that film for some reason or another watch all of these shorter ones, and so you're like watching the short films with these people in the wrapper movie. And so in the VHS films, there's, you know, the very first one, these guys break into a house, right, and they're going to rob it, and then in the house there are all of these oh no, I think they were actually paid to break into this house and steal a VHS tape, and they're going to get paid like some hilarious amount of money to do it. And so when they break in, the house has all of these VHS tapes in it, and they're like, well, which one is it? So they just start playing them, and every one they play is one of the movies you watch, right? And then they each get picked off one by one in between the movies. So you're watching like a horror movie with horror movies inside of it, and all of them have wrapper movies, you know, that are usually not very interesting because they're the vehicle to get you into these short films. And so they, by virtue of the fact that they're on a VHS tape, most of them are old, like they're period pieces, right? Because we're supposed to understand these were not filmed on an iPhone, these were not, you know, or whatever, these are on a VHS tape. And
except
so
for viral, right? The third one was
right.
viral.
You're right.
So that
you're right.
But
yeah, and we forget about that one for a reason. Yeah. So the one that Scott has a segment in is called VHS 85, and again, they're all basically just set in the 80s. I don't know that any of them like has a specific thing that would locate it in 1985, but they're all supposed to be in the 80s, and it's called Dream Kill. And I think it was definitely one of the more solid segments. So though again, this one was so interesting because it had this is the one that Gigi Guerrero had a segment in, so it's in Spanish. It's the first all Spanish segment of VHS. It had two different segments that were written and directed by the same person and actually connect to each other, though you don't realize that till the end of the second segment in some really surprising ways, right?
Yeah.
So even within this, they were experimenting with what they can do in a VHS film, and then you put Scott Derrickson at the end to close it all out. You know, it's a total banger, right? So
yeah. I actually watched this just the other night to try and get it in before our podcast, and I felt like this was a lot more R-rated, and in the visuals, the gore. We don't normally see him kind of diving into the blood and stuff like that, but this one, it's a first person view of a murderer who's going after a couple of people, and then there's also the story
police
of the police.
the police are receiving these tapes, right? And they play them, and it's like a guy like filming himself doing these things, but they haven't happened yet.
Yes. Yeah. So how is this happening? You know?
Yeah.
Really solid. Really solid short film, but go ahead.
And that's it, right? Like these movies are 10-15 minutes long, right? So you're getting some really condensed storytelling, and it makes the scares pop because you don't have time for lots of character development. You don't have time for these big arcs. Like, you've got to get in there, establish who these people are. The action is driving everything, and then it's done, you know? So this is again another one that he wrote with Cargill, who is just a brilliant short story writer, and I think that's like fully on display here. And then it has a tight connection to Black Phone in it as well. So there's a nice little Easter egg there, which again, internet lost its mind when people started to figure that out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually just realized too that one of the actors was also in Black Phone.
Nice.
One of the police guys was the brother of Ethan Hawke that was staying in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same actor. I also recognized him from It Chapter 2. That's where I kind of
nice.
He's been in other things, but that's what kind of comes to mind when I think of that guy.
Do we call him a Scream King then?
There he is. Yep, he is.
All right.
That's good. Other anthology film that came to mind as you were sharing is the All Hallows Eve. So are you a fan of Art the Clown, or is that too much?
Yeah, man. I mean, you know, I appreciate what he's doing, and I think it's a great example of how thin the line between horror and comedy is. Because holy cow, those are. But but again, he is doing classic mime work
Yeah,
in
yeah,
this, right? Classic clowning, and clowning at its core is often like very weird and scary. And
hmm,
so yeah, it's I think it's kind of a genius character. And those movies are so extreme, you know.
hmm,
Uh but yeah, as a horror fan, like it's definitely taking the genre to places it hasn't gone before. And it does feel different from something that's just purely gore for gore's sake, you know.
yes, yeah,
It's really something, you know. And I think he said he's got one or two more planned for
yeah,
this like arc he's telling with the girl that they introduced in Terrifier 2. But
yeah. So he is a big that Howard I can't remember his whole name, but the guy that plays Art the Clown, he goes around to a lot of these cons, and so a friend of mine has
yeah,
gotten his autograph. He's met him a couple
yeah,
times, and so
I
we were
mean,
going.
again, when you look at what he's doing and you compare that to like a Michael Myers or a Jason, who are also silent for the whole movie, right?
Hmm,
um I think what he's doing is way more interesting and therefore
yeah,
way more scary, you know. Not
and I
no
think
shade on Michael or Jason, but
sure, sure. Uh, so we were at the OKC Horror Con. There was going to be 3 cast members there from the Terrifier series, and Kristen hadn't seen it, and I had not, on purpose, I had not tried to ask her to see it. And I was like, she's like, well, I want to watch it. So she was like looking up who's going to be there. She's like, oh, I want to watch this. And I was like, it's going to be like Game of Thrones times 100, right? So she knew that, but she felt the same way. She's not big into like horror. She's not big into gore and guts, but there was something about this, the way that this movie presents Art the Clown, that it was approachable, and it was humorous, and also it took you by surprise on a number of occasions, and it was like it was palatable for her, and she's like, I had so much fun. That was such a great movie. So it is interesting to have that, and I think his name is David Howard Thornburg or something like that. Anyway, Thornton. Um, but yeah, the two ladies that were in the film, in the first film, were there at the horror con. So, and really well spoken, by the way. I was super impressed
nice.
with how much they knew about just not just their film, but just film in general, like how well studied they were. The one girl is that's kind of the main final girl that it doesn't end up being making it. She's like a stunt girl. She's been doing stunts forever. And the other girl has been in a lot of movies, but she's like, I studied this and got my degree in this, and I did the whole. I was just like, this is nuts. So lots of fun there. So I felt like
That's really cool.
the
So
anthology theme lended itself
did
to talking
Kristen
about stuff.
watch all of them?
We've just watched the first one so far, and that one's got some massive gore in it.
Uh
But
uh-huh. You'll say that until you've seen the next one.
I've seen 2 and 3, so
Okay,
I've
so
seen
yeah, so
them.
you
But
know. Yeah, you
yeah, yeah,
know.
yeah.
Like
I
yeah,
know
they just
it keeps going.
wow.
It keeps going.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. um, so let's kind of get back to Scott Derrickson. Had one more film actually released this year, starring Anya Taylor-Joy and Miles Teller, called The Gorge. I knew nothing about what this film was about when I put it on. I hadn't read anything, didn't know anything. I just went in cold and watched it.
Did you know it was Derrickson?
I knew it was Scott Derrickson, yes,
Okay.
for the
Okay.
purposes, I hadn't known it until I saw it on his filmography to prepare for this. But really, really clever, kind of fun action movie. They are from different countries. One is from America, one is from Germany or Russia, and kind of they're both on this gorge. And there's something in the gorge that they're responsible. They've been hired by their governments as these kind of like contract workers, contract assassins to man these towers and keep whatever's in the gorge, and don't let it come out. We find out early on that it could be the gates to hell. That's one of the ways the
One of the theories.
yeah, the former soldier that leaves it to Miles Teller said. But I really liked it. I thought the chemistry between the two in the story was really great, really cute. The way that they were flirting with each other, the way that they were playing back and forth. I thought there was a couple of funny homages. I think homages to their past work when they played one scene. They're playing chess together, and another scene they're playing drums together. So a little Queen's Gambit Whiplash maybe homage. I thought that was awesome.
Gotta be right when you've got
Yeah,
all of the choices of things, you know.
exactly. But yeah, really solid, kind of a fun, lighthearted movie with some good scares. I thought the action wise, I thought Anya did an incredible job. I think, of course, Mad Max helped her with that. Furiosa movie gave her a little bit of those kind of action backgrounds. While she's done some other stuff, I think her abilities, her physicality in this movie just shined for me. And they end up having to take down some monsters and then try to get out of there, realizing that and we realize as the audience that they're going to get killed either way. So they're trying to escape and get away together. So, what are some of your thoughts? Anything I missed out on the Gorge?
No, I think it's a fun mashup, right? It's some horror, it's some kind of Cold War spy espionage, a little bit of James Bond with like all their little gadgets and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Obviously, there's like the rom-com element, right? And it's really tough to say that any one of those genres was the genre,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
it really does kind of go all over the place. Amanda, my partner, loves a good creature feature, and
Mm-hmm.
so like lots of creatures in this. um and I've seen a couple people criticize it for being horror light, and I'm like, yeah, but it's like rom-com light and it's spy movie light. Like it's not
Yeah.
light, it's just because it's a blend of all of these genres, right? It's not going all in on any of them, and I don't know that should be counted as a bug. I think in some
Mm-hmm.
ways that's a feature, right? Because it
Yeah.
is kind of its own thing and it feels pretty unique and fun.
Yeah. We got hints of a little bit of like Last of Us, like that the plants are now growing through these people and they're now plant people, instead of mushroom people like Last of Us.
Yeah, that
I
sequence
kind
in
of
the
threw,
church was super scary,
yeah, yeah,
you know?
for sure, for sure. It was
So
good.
interesting. Yeah, I'm always kind of wanting to know, like, why did they decide, particularly with two such bankable stars, right? Like, why does Apple decide this is going to be a straight to Apple Plus release? You
Yeah.
know, why not a theatrical release? It surely cost a good bit of money to get those. Now there are only two actors in it, more or
Mm-hmm.
less,
Yeah.
but Scott Derrickson is a well-regarded director, and you have these two actors, and you have like big sets and special effects, so it couldn't have
Right.
been that cheap of a movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm curious, why make this movie and then drop it onto Apple Plus. It was cute that it debuted on Valentine's Day, sure. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, I
Like
wonder,
Deadpool.
what yeah, exactly right. Like, I wonder what the logic was there. And I mean, I saw particularly Scott, like it was all over his Instagram for
Mm-hmm.
weeks leading up to this, and his partner, oh gosh, of course, now as soon as I want to say her name I forget it. Well, I'll remember it later. I follow her as well, and she was a big part of promoting it. I think she was also a second location director, maybe. She also has had a on the I think in the most recent VHS she had a Maggie Levinson. Found it.
Nice.
There was her name. So she was I think she was the second unit director for the Gorge, and then also had a segment in the most recent VHS. So is a
Okay.
horror director in her own right. But yeah,
That's awesome. Anything else you want to say about Scott Derrickson? Are you looking forward to the Black Phone 2? Does it? He's
yeah. I
directing
mean,
it. That.
again, yeah. No, I overall I am for sure. I think I don't know that I've ever despised a Scott Derrickson movie, and again, Ethan Hawke is always fun. Um, he wrote with Robert Cargill again, and I really like their work together. So I'm planning to enjoy this. Uh, I'll probably revisit the original before we go see it, and I'm wondering if I'll pick up on what kind of pinged for me the last time. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool, man. Well, I can't remember when this movie is coming out. Do you know off the top of your head?
It's pretty quick. I think it's October. Uh,
There it
October
is,
17th. Yep.
October 17th.
Yep.
So I know that's kind of hard to think that far ahead. you got anything you want to plug for the folks?
That time of year, I'll probably have some spooky content up for Sojourners.
Okay.
I always like to throw them a spooky article. They'll be resharing my Monsters in the Enneagram stuff, so that'll always be fun. And then Don't Split Up, we always try to do some extra content around Halloween as well, because we're a horror podcast. So
Yeah. Very cool. The last few years we've done horror themed all 4 weeks of October. This
mandatory, right?
year, yeah. Well, this year the movies didn't, because I based them off of what movies are kind of hitting theaters and trying to tie it in, and there's not a whole lot of horror hitting in October.
Also true, yeah.
So I was like, but we are still going to do the boys are going to do their top 5 Halloween films, their top scary movies, I guess you'd say. So then we're going to touch on it a little bit, but yeah, Tron is coming out in October.
That might be a horror movie for entirely different reasons.
Yeah, but Black Phone 2 is coming out in October, so we're going to hit up a couple of them, but yeah, the last year we did our kind of the icons of horror was one of the episodes, so we talked about all the Freddys, the Jasons, and all that stuff, and then we did top 5 indie horror, top 5 overall horror. And a couple of them were on both lists, and then we did like just our, fun, scary movies. So
When are you covering Alien Earth?
so we focus mainly on the TV stuff, but I'm sorry, the movies. I'm mainly hitting up the movies, but I've been
Yeah,
tempted to
but
do the shows that make you, because
have you
there's some good
started
TV too.
Alien Earth?
Yes, yeah. I think I'm caught up except for last night. So it's crazy. But we did an Alien series for Romulus, so we watched through all the Alien
Obviously.
films, and Chris and I
Gotta.
talked about it. What's your go-to theater for the experience these days?
I mean, if I can, it's Dolby, right?
Yeah.
Like that's, we've got A-list, and I mean, I like a good IMAX movie, but honestly, we know it's Limax. It's not the real IMAX, unless I want to drive down to Webb Chapel. And so, yeah, the Dolby at the reclining seat, the sound is so good. The screen is so sharp, you
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
it's so nice. There's fewer people, which means fewer chance people are going to talk that I'll have to shush, you know.
And there's a barrier behind you from the row behind you, so it's like there's
They
this
can't kick you
built-in
by mistake. Yeah.
yeah, there's this built-in separation between the
Yep.
members. So yeah, we
Yeah.
like Dolby. It's the boys love Dolby. I kind of still do the IMAX if it's there. I like I know it's Limax, but it's still a larger screen. But I will say the screen at North Park Mall is larger than the one at Firewheel.
Oh,
We
nice.
saw
Okay,
we
that's good to
saw
know.
Romulus there, and we just
Yeah.
saw what do we see this past weekend? Oh, we just saw the Black Swan there for the
But
15th
yeah. Oh,
anniversary.
nice.
And
Okay.
so it is, and I was like, maybe it's just our seats because I kind of sit up front in Firewheel. Maybe if we sit up higher, it'll be different. Nope,
Nah.
it's
No.
still the
No.
same size. So
Now,
I would check North Park for their IMAX. It's pretty awesome.
have you watched Sinners at home yet?
No, I saw it in regular
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
IMAX, and I saw it in Webb Chapel IMAX.
So you paid attention. I know you did because you're a nerd to the way he changed the aspect ratios.
Hmm.
So I don't know how it is if you watch it on HBO Max, but I bought a digital copy of it, and when you watch it on the digital copy, it changes aspect ratios
That's cool.
from because if you have the wide TV, right, you have the bars
Yeah,
for the letterbox, but then it does fill up the whole screen. Which
yeah,
I don't know if that's the same as the IMAX ratio, but like it does do the changing, and I was like,
yeah. That's amazing.
so pretty cool
Yeah, yeah, and I
because that
think
was
that's
so
he's
integral.
right. Yeah, absolutely. And that was the first time that ever happened in film, and he used real film to do it based on recommendations by Christopher Nolan. And we talked about Odyssey earlier. I have to ask. Christopher Nolan's Odyssey already put tickets on sale. They sold out one showing one night. Uh, I have a theory about that, but what's your take on Nolan's Odyssey?
Oh, I mean, I'm gonna actually try to read the Odyssey before,
Nice.
and
Yeah,
then maybe do a double feature with Oh Brother Where Art Thou,
I love it.
right?
That's we are,
What is
and
your
I
theory? Do you think someone's gonna be there?
no. What I think is the studio's like, okay, Chris, all right, we get it. you like IMAX. We get it. You like film. You're way too expensive, bro. Like, none of this is worth the cost of what it's going to be to make this, to do this entire thing in IMAX film, ship
Right.
that film all.
Right.
Try it. Just see, just test put one showing on the Thursday. Just see how many
Yeah.
sold out. Boom. And I
Yeah.
really do. That's my theory. Now I haven't heard anybody else say that. I mean, I heard other people complaining, there's no more tickets. I'm like, it was one showing, guys.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
think it was a
You'll be
test the
fine.
waters. It was a way of saying to the studio, it will be worth it in the end. Trust me. And I think with his partnership with IMAX, I mean, I know he's not a paid partner with IMAX, but he definitely collaborates with them a lot for
He's
these films.
single-handedly keeping them in business. We know this, right? Like, well,
Yeah,
to your
yeah,
point, Coogler did it because of Nolan,
yeah,
right? Like, I'm
yeah,
not really being tongue in cheek there. Like, Nolan is
yeah,
keeping that particular medium for all of the right reasons, keeping it alive, you know?
yeah.
And
And
he's every movie he makes, he's demonstrating, here's why, guys.
yeah. The cool thing for me too about that, and I've heard him say it before, is just like he wants people to come to the movies for a big experience, and it's not just a movie, it's an experience. And he hated 3D because you're putting on dark glasses in a dark room. There's no way you can see a clear picture. He doesn't like all those. He doesn't like the digital because it's not an authentic theater experience, and so he's going to lean into the to the real deal, man. And I'm here for it. We saw, I think it was opening weekend, we got to see the Oppenheimer in the Webb Chapel IMAX, and we had done so I do periodic marathons with my brother-in-law, and so we had watched the first the How I Grew to Love the Atomic Bomb,
Dr.
Doctor Strangelove.
Strangelove.
Yeah, we watched that, and then we watched Fat Boy and Little Slim or whatever, the '90s version of Oppenheimer, and then we watched those two, and then went to the theater for the big, huge, incredible thing. And I think I saw it twice in that format because it's just like such a beautiful thing. And opening weekend, we got to see Sinners. I saw it twice opening weekend, once by myself and then once with Kristen in the Webb Chapel. It's so nuts, man. It's so good. So good. Hey man, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for being on the podcast. And
Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
yeah, hopefully you'll be willing to come back. Maybe we'll find something else we can talk about. But it'd be
Surely
good to have
there's
you
at
back.
least one other thing.
At least one. Awesome, man. Well, we'll talk to you soon, buddy, and we'll talk to you. I'll let you know like when we post, and I'll tag you and stuff so you know what's going on.
Perfect. Thanks, brother.
Thanks so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Again, you can check out all of our links at bio.site/movies that make you. Feel free to drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. So until next time, keep watching movies.